Alderman Moore is absent. Alderman Pandaleon.
Here.
Alderman Morsch.
Here.
Alderman Schoenheider absent. Alderman Palmer.
Here.
Alderman Adelman.
Here.
7 present, 2 absent. Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business this evening is reports of city officers. First being comments by mayor. I do have a few comments to make this evening. First is I'd like to report that tonight the city council met in executive session and heard the results of an independent review regarding an inappropriate conversation allegedly held in 2008 involving a Lake Forest Police Department student resource officer, or SRO, and a former police department intern. Even though no complaint was ever filed, in December of 2011, the city of Lake Forest hired Lee Jeter with the law firm of Clark, Baird, Smith, LLP to investigate the questionable conduct which was reported as part of a Gurnee police report on another matter. In connection with the investigation, Ms. Jeter reviewed and analyzed multiple documents, including the city's and the police department's personnel policies, documents regarding the police department's internship program, various emails and text messages, and a police report relating to the former intern's 2009 complaint to the Village of Gurnee Police Department against the former Deer Path Middle School principal, John Steinert. She also interviewed multiple witnesses. Ms. Jeter's report states, notably, during the course of the investigation, the city provided me with the opportunity to review all relevant documents and interview all pertinent witnesses. No one from the city limited the scope of my investigation or otherwise provided me any directives regarding the investigation or my findings. Although these were insufficient grounds to file formal charges with the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, an independent board comprised of Lake Forest residents that is established pursuant to Illinois Municipal Code, the city feels certain actions of the SRO failed to meet its core values and will be addressing this matter under its personnel policies. According to City Manager Bob Cowhey, the City of Lake Forest and the Police Department take any suggestion of employee misconduct very seriously. The city has established extremely high standards for its employees that place heavy emphasis on the core values of integrity, respect, trust, and excellence. Deviance from these values is not taken lightly. Actions to be taken by the city include: the city will be providing updated anti-harassment training to all members of the police department as well as employees citywide. Citywide training was last conducted in 2006, and supervisory training was conducted in 2008 and 2011. Supervisory employees will be reminded that, consistent with the city's anti-harassment policy, all supervisors are required to report any complaints or suspected violations of the anti-harassment policy to the Human Resource Director or the City Manager. The SRO program will be revisited with the new District 67 superintendent later this summer. The city will follow up with Lake Forest College officials to apprise them of the steps being taken and discuss any safeguards that can be put in place with respect to the internship program. Further, I'd like to state that the City Council is satisfied with Ms. Jeter's thorough investigation of this matter and is taking proactive measures to fortify the city's anti-harassment training. Additionally, I want to strongly reiterate our commitment to working with any and all outside agencies on questionable conduct or inappropriate behavior by individuals working for or interacting with our citizens. The next comment I have this evening is a proclamation of Smith's Men's Store 75th anniversary. And I'd like to read the proclamation into the record. Whereas in 1926, Lake Forest residents Walter Smith and George Robertson planned to open a men's clothing store, but financing fell short, and therefore George Robertson opened Robertson's, and Walter Smith became the Lake Forest postmaster. And whereas in 1937, Walter Smith and his wife Irene Atteridge Smith fulfilled their dreams by opening a haberdashery in Lake Forest on the north side of Market Square, where it was well received by its customers and residents. Whereas the store moved to 660 Northwestern Avenue in 1961, where it operated by Walter and Irene until Walter passed away and their son H. Brooks Smith purchased the store, and whereas H. Brooks Smith and his wife Jacqueline D. Smith visibly enjoyed their successful enterprise and fostered strong community ties with their customers and residents until 1987. Whereas less than 1 year later, Smith's Men's Store reopened its doors at its present location at 770 Western Avenue under the ownership of two former Smith's employees and longtime Lake Foresters, John Tatel and Chris Yore. And whereas in 1995, John Tatel became the sole owner of Smith's Men's Store, and since then, Chris Yore has rejoined John Tatel, working there part-time, as well as Pony Swanton, a former owner of Robertson's. And whereas in 2012, Smith's Men's Store is celebrating its 75th anniversary as a truly locally owned and operated enterprise and part of the Lake Forest business community. Therefore, I, James Cowhey, Mayor, the City of Lake Forest, proclaim the city's best wishes on Smith's Men's Store's 75th anniversary and call its significance to the citizens of the City of Lake Forest. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of the City Council, and a copy hereof, duly signed by the Mayor, be presented to the City of Lake Forest this 5th day of March, 2012.
I move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I do have one more comment this evening, and that is looking for an approval for the appointment of Peter Cherry to the Gorton Commission. Peter's volunteer profile sheet is on page 8 of your agenda this evening. But,
I'll move to appoint. Recommend appoint.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And those concludes my comments this evening. Our next item on the agenda is comments by City Manager. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just to give you a quick update with respect to the electric aggregation referendum that's on the ballot, March 20th. We will be having before you at your March 19th City Council meeting David Grumhouse, who maybe you saw his letter to the editor that was in last week's Lake Forester, and Kurt Volkman will be here. At that time, we're hoping that we will have the proposed supplier who will be working with the consortium groups to purchase the alternative electricity supply, and he will be able, or David and the committee will be able to better provide estimates as to exactly what that savings will be if we go to the alternative provider or not. You may have seen recently an article in Crane Chicago Business too, where Commonwealth Edison is saying if so many people leave, they're going to have to up their price. So those people that actually stay with ComEd are going to end up paying more as a result of it. So we will be having the ordinance back on the agenda for the March 19th meeting, as well as then coming back, if the referendum passes on March 20th, to the April 2nd council meeting as well. Second, I know that it was almost 9 months ago, I guess, when we were experiencing all those outages with Commonwealth Edison. And since that time, we've been working with them, particularly in one pocket area, as the First Ward Alderman know, over on McKinley-Sheridan Road area. I'm pleased to report that this evening, with the hard work and assistance of Commonwealth Edison and city staff here, we've been able to collectively get the residents together to grant Commonwealth Edison the necessary easements so that the upgrade work can begin. And Karina, I'll turn it over to you and let you give further update.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. The only other thing that I would add to this is tomorrow, city staff will be walking with Comcast, ComEd, and AT&T to have the final walkthrough. And at that time, we anticipate that we should have a final construction schedule within the next week or two. We hope that the project will begin in mid-March, early April, and we've been advised that it should only take a month, so that the improvements should be completed by May 1st prior to the actual summer season and hopefully prior to any major storms. If you notice overhead, Ramesh just highlighted the area where the project will be taking place, and as Bob indicated, it would be McKinley, Deer Path, all the way east to Sheridan, and Illinois and College Roads.
And Karina, Bob, Ramesh, Kathy, thank you to all. Last summer, I don't think a lot of people could appreciate, but the power went out in that area at least 6 times, and the people in the area were very frustrated. So the progress in this length of time is truly appreciated by all that live in the area and their aldermen. So thanks again.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you all for a great job. I know the residents really, really appreciate all your hard work and efforts, and thought maybe it couldn't be done, but it could be done. So.
Well, we have to thank the residents too. When you put them all together in a room and says, now everybody has to agree if this is going to happen, is a wonderful thing about getting each other to agree. So we're really pleased it was able to come about. So the final item I have, which isn't on your report, but no meeting would be complete unless Michael Thomas wasn't here to talk about membranes.
Or trucks.
Or trucks.
Thank you.
But at your last meeting, the council did approve the purchase of the membranes, although David Moore came up with an excellent suggestion that has saved money, and I asked Michael to come back and get the council's authorization on tweaking your action at the last meeting. And so, Michael, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. In front of you have this chart that shows the 3, we'll call them scenarios, but the council write-up is, the initial council write-up for our last budget meeting was a request for $323,000 for 36 modules. The Public Works Committee met beforehand, and with the recommendation from the chairman and Alderman Moore, recommended that we go up to 40. We have 8 modules that are on the, we'll call it on the edge of the number of fiber breaks. So I had requested, because we were below budget, could we purchase 40? The Public Works Committee agreed. We brought it to City Council. Alderman Moore made the recommendation to purchase 40, with the caveat that we look into shipping the modules via sea versus air. He thought we would save a good amount of money, and in fact, he was correct. We saved over $19,000 by shipping them by sea. It'll take a couple weeks longer for us to receive, but that will be okay. So we are back to this evening asking if we could reinvest those dollars to purchase additional modules. They provided us the quote. It is a flat rate to ship all the modules in one of those containers. It can hold 68 modules, although we would love to purchase 68. We don't have the funds to do so. We are asking if we could have your permission to purchase 44. In doing that, we would be approximately $9,000 over budget, but I've been assured by our finance director that those funds are available in the water fund. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Good job. I wish Alderman Moore was here to see the work that his comments were executed on and the savings were made, and you were able to buy some more. That's great. So
We think so too.
Yeah,
I
only
think it's a
good.
good idea. I'd recommend we go ahead and do it. We
Yeah.
saved some money that we were going to spend on air freight, so how can you be happier about that?
Just for the sake, the shelf life on the modules, we will have an opportunity to use them without them going bad.
We will actually be putting almost all of them into service right away, 40 of them right off the bat. The other 4, the shelf life is, I believe, 18 months, and they absolutely will be put into service before that shelf life expires. So yes, we could use them.
Yeah, only sounds good.
We'll need a motion and a second to authorize it.
And
body's approvals.
And I'd move for the purchase of the 44 modules.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And that completes my report until the final item on the agenda.
Thank you, Bob. Our next item on the agenda this evening is comments by council members. Yes, Michael?
I'll be brief just for the viewing audience. Believe it or not, golf season is just weeks away. Deer Path is revamped. If you didn't buy your season passes by March 1st, it's still not too late. And tomorrow's going to be 55, 60 degrees, Wednesday too. I know it's hard to believe with the cold weather the last couple days, but be thinking golf.
I have a question, maybe that our village manager can answer. In the 2 weeks since this council voted not to put in a cell phone ordinance, but rather wait for the state of Illinois to enact one, has there been any progress in the state of Illinois enacting a cell phone ordinance?
That's a great question, and I'll be able to tell you later on this week. I'm headed to Springfield on Wednesday, and that's one of the questions I have to ask them, is what the status of that is. So,
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments by council members?
If you could warn us when Alderman Adelman's going to be golfing, just... No comments.
It's easier to tell you when I'm not.
You want to put it on the website, or?
Just for caution.
All right. Hearing no more comments, we'll move on to the next item, which is an opportunity for citizens to address the city council on non-agenda items. Yes, you want to come on up?
Hi, I'm Lucy Cooper. I'm back from Lake Forest College.
Oh, welcome.
My address again, I do that again, 555 North Sheridan Road. I'm just here to give you a little bit of an update on kind of what I've been working on. I've met with Susan Kelsey again, and we're really excited. We are working right now on planning a welcome back bash for the college in the fall semester, which is very exciting. We're working on getting those dates set. Just kind of a nice little festivity to get the town and the college together right before the academic year starts. We're also working on a column for Ask the Mayor in our school newspaper, which is very exciting. And we'll also be starting to deliver our school newspaper to City Hall. If anyone is interested in picking that up and looking at it, it's just got some updates from the college. Kind of fun little articles about what's going on. And then finally, I would just like to send out my condolences to the family and friends of the recent high school student that passed away. And just, you know, I've talked to various college students on campus that have expressed, you know, concern and worry about it. And if there's anything that we as college students can do to help in any way at all with the high school students, we would love to do what we can. If there are any ideas, we've started maybe brainstorming a mentor program or something like that with college students and high school students. So that's kind of an update from the college. So, thank you.
And thanks for coming out this evening. And I know as former mayors used to say, we don't have to subject you to the pain of sitting through the rest of the meeting, but we do thank you for coming and keeping us updated.
Thank you very much.
And I would make a comment, just I didn't mention it in my comments earlier, but I know that we will be convening another meeting of the Traffic Safety Enhancement Committee here shortly to readdress some of the issues with pedestrian safety and the railroads. And I know I also received a phone call this afternoon from superintendent of the schools that would like to convene more on a community-wide issue to address some of the issues with teenagers in the community and how the community can help as a whole for some of the issues affecting our young folks. So I don't have anything as far as information, dates, or exactly how that committee will be formed, but I assume that it will be forming here in the very near future, and the public will be notified as to how to get involved. So stay tuned, we'll get you more information. Yes?
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just add to that, because you refreshed my memory. My wife and I were chatting. She grew up in Lake Forest. I don't recall what class. And when she was over at the high school, they had a counselor there to help the kids who might have been a little bit troubled, things bothering them. And I think his name was Gene Brooks. And she asked me if today, currently, if the high school has anybody that the kids can turn to for counseling. And I know that's not a city issue, although we're all concerned as citizens, and maybe it's a school board issue. But I would like to think that these young people who may be having some peer group troubles or academic troubles, that there's somebody outside the family household perhaps that they can turn to for help.
Yeah, I can only answer from my own knowledge. I know Ann Whipple's back there shaking her head, but I have my youngest is now at the high school, and I know that the high school did offer counseling. They do have counselors. I think they have more than one, as far as I know. So they do have a few, and they have been offering those services. I think the phone call that I received today was to expand upon that, to try to get the community, again, more involved, not simply from the high school, but if we can pull all of our resources, which certainly is a good idea, and I wholeheartedly agreed and expressed to the superintendent that our traffic committee that we have right now that dealt a lot with the rail and rail pedestrian accidents has members of both schools on that committee, plus Metra and a number of other very well qualified individuals. But the issue was to see if we could include the community more as a whole, so to expand it beyond just the school borders, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So I know that will be happening here shortly. And you have some more you want to add to that? I know you work with the school district. If you want to make some more comments, please do.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Just a little bit that I can add to that. Yes, they do have quite a full array of counselors as well as social workers and a crisis management team that really did just step right into action when we became aware of this recent tragedy, as well as any time there are problems in the school or in the community that the students do need support. The day of, they actually pulled certain kids from classes, worked with them that were close friends of the young man. They worked with the freshman class. The following day they did it as well. The schools communicated to parents to let them know that the counseling department was available to any student that was expressing any distress or needed some support. And it is just amazing. I was over there the day of and the day after, how well our high school staff knows the students and really does intervene and talk to groups. That continued throughout the week. On Friday was an in-service day that they had a full day of plans, but they basically scrapped their plans and brought in a local psychologist to talk to the staff about dealing with grief and stress and distressed families. I believe they're going to be offering that same service to the parents, and we will be communicating that as well. And what Mayor Cowhey is speaking about is this morning there was actually a meeting that involved Lake Forest police officials as well as LEAD, Croya, parents, and school administrators from 65, 67, and 115 to put together a task force to look into exactly what Mayor Cowhey described. They're also meeting with Barrington officials because there were similar concerns in Barrington and working with other schools locally and nationally. So they've really done quite a bit since over the last week.
Thanks.
You know, to bring this back to where this conversation started, Lake Forest College is right here, and sometimes high school kids may have a better comfort level talking to somebody who's a little closer to themselves in age, who's been through some of this. I would strongly encourage all of these different initiatives to take you know, our friends' offer to heart and see if there's some opportunity there, because I think there very well could be.
And that was the plan. I think it was just a core group to get started today. They're also broadening the circle to the private schools as well as other schools in Lake Forest, Lake Bluff area, as well as they've talked with Lake Forest Northwestern Hospital, and they've been very anxious to be involved as well and offer resources from the hospital too. So, and the ministry groups, so they're hoping to leave no stone unturned to involve as many as possible. But the group today was just a small core group to kind of kick things off. So I think that will happen.
And you know what kind of exacerbates it today is under these hard economic times, there's a higher percentage of people losing their jobs, even in this community, and there's an increasing percentage of fragmented marriages, which creates for a very distressful household environment. And oftentimes these kids with their troubles cannot turn to their parents because of the rest going on in the house. And it'd be great if they had an outside outlet that they could go to give them some comfort before you know another tragedy occurs.
Yeah, and this is an issue certainly not affecting only Lake Forest. This is countrywide. I mean,
Right.
you know, as you state, the economy and issues with families and the like, and how young people and how we all deal with it. So it makes a lot of sense for us to get together and bring as many people as possible together and see how we can deal with these issues. And certainly there's a lot of related issues too that will come out of it that hopefully we can shed light on and bring help to. So thank you, Ann. I appreciate your comments too. Any other comments from the public? No, then we'll move on to the next item, which is items for omnibus vote consideration. We have the one main item, which is the check register for period December 21st, 2012 to January 30th, 2012. And we have the approval of the February 21st, 2012 City Council meeting minutes. Any questions or comments on those two items?
Brief comment on the minutes. As far as the module purchase that was approved, in the minutes it's noted that 36 were approved. It was actually 40 that were approved at the meeting.
Okay.
Again, by Alderman Moore, but that would be the only correction I could come up with.
All right, we'll make that correction. Any other comments or questions? Now I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved with that one correction.
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Novit,
Aye.
Alderman Waldeck,
Aye.
Alderman Pandaleon,
Aye.
Alderman Morsch,
Aye.
Alderman Palmer,
Aye.
Alderman Adelman,
Aye.
6 yeas, no yeas, motion carries.
Thank you, Karina. Our next item on the agenda this evening is ordinances. We do have Ramesh. And Karina, we have a consideration recommendation to approve a license agreement to the underpass construction, maintenance, and use with Metra at the Telegraph Rd train station, presented by Karina Walters. Karina?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. You'll see me floating back and forth this evening. If you recall at the December 5th Committee of the Whole meeting, we did, staff presented a pretty lengthy presentation on transportation history. We discussed the status of the underpass, and we also discussed a potential license agreement that needed to be signed in the future. In order for us to actually build the underpass, we do need to have an executed license agreement with Metra. Metra is the owner of the right-of-way, and this is located on the West Lake Forest train station. Ramesh nicely put up a picture for us if we needed to look at it. Essentially, this agreement allows the city to construct the underpass with the approval of Metra and IDOT. Of course, this includes the plans, specifications concerning any design, location, and configuration of the underpass. Portion of the agreement stipulates that the city needs to meet following criteria. One is the fact that the license agreement itself would be a 50-year agreement between the city and Metra. but other aspects of the contract indicate that the City of Lake Forest is responsible for any and all maintenance. This would include any snow removal, any graffiti that needed to be removed. The agreement also stipulates that any flagging costs need to be absorbed by the city, as well as any costs associated with building the underpass, as well as any signage. Although there's no costs associated with the license agreement per se, there will be costs associated for the City of Lake Forest to actually complete the maintenance of the underpass. I've actually spoken with Metra and have asked them for an approximate cost of what it might be for the city to maintain. And they really indicated that it depends on the scope of the work and how intricate the details and how extravagant the underpass is. Ours seems to be, at this point, it will be pretty simplistic. So they indicated that it could cost anywhere from $500. And I know that seems pretty low, considering if we have snow removal, if there's any graffiti. I did recently, this afternoon, have a chance to have a quick conversation with Deerfield. And given the fact that they have completed their underpass within the last year, they budgeted approximately $15,000 for their maintenance. I do not have the number, but I could obtain that for you, what they have spent to date. Unless you have any questions regarding the agreement, and if appropriate, should the City Council desire to approve the license agreement between the City of Lake Forest and Metra to construct, maintain for the use of the pedestrian underpass at the Telegraph Rd train station. After my presentation, Ramesh will actually come up here and discuss the details for the Phase 1 engineering and give you some more detail on that. But this does need to be completed in order to continue to move with the project.
Any questions for Karina?
So it's a 50-year agreement. Hopefully the structure will be there for more than 50 years.
Correct.
What happens at the end of 50 years?
There is an option to renew, and of course we can always renegotiate an additional lengthy lease.
And the city's responsible for, I mean, it's a primarily concrete construction, I would think, so 50 years is a long time even for concrete.
Correct, and this license agreement is also similar, very similar to the Deerfield one as well.
Mm-hmm. So the city's responsible for if the concrete starts to crack, if it needs to be, I mean, so somewhere in the 50 years there's likely to be more than a $500 bill associated with this, just to kind of get it out on the table. Right?
Absolutely. As the infrastructure ages, our maintenance costs will end up going up.
Question. Yeah, the 500 jumped out at me too as being kind of light. I didn't know they did this down in Deerfield, but I was going to ask, who drafted this agreement? Did they pretty much draft it and then Vic reviewed it, or did we have to draft? Do we have a lot of legal expense in this document?
We received it with the packet.
With the packet. So is it's similar to Deerfield's? Is it similar to Ravinia's? They did one a couple years ago.
It's very similar to Deerfield's. Now, I'm not sure if Ravinia has a license agreement, but this is pretty carbon copy to what Deerfield has.
And is there any way we can like break out the legal expense that we have in connection with this and lay that off on the TIF funds, capitalize it into the TIF expense on this project as opposed to taking it out of city legal?
I'd probably defer that to our city attorney.
If there are remaining TIF funds, then the answer would be probably yes.
We can capitalize it into the cost, right?
It doesn't even need to be capitalized. I mean, it's an expense that's allowed.
It's an expense, right.
Good. Yeah, you can't capitalize.
You know, the TIF is running out anyway.
Yeah, but that, I mean, that's how we're paying for the Phase 1, I understand.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Karina? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please. I'll give you time to get back to your chair.
Alderman Novit,
Aye.
Alderman Waldeck,
Aye.
Alderman Pandaleon,
Aye.
Alderman Morsch,
Aye.
Alderman Palmer,
Aye.
Alderman Adelman.
Aye.
6 yeas, no nays, the motion carries.
Thank you, Karina. And our next item is related to the first, and this is for an award of a professional services contract to HDR Engineering Inc. for Phase 1 preliminary engineering on the Telegraph Road train station pedestrian underpass project. This is Ramesh Kanaprati, city surveyor and engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. To continue Karina's discussions on the Metra agreement, we are seeking today to award a professional services contract to HDR Engineering to provide Phase 1. As part of selection of the firm, we went through the standard professional services contract. We sent out the RFQ request for qualifications to 10 eligible consulting firms. We received 7 of them back, and then city staff team consisting of myself, Karina, Quandel Consultants, and Norm Carlson. We narrowed it down to top 3 consultants. We interviewed the 3 of them, and then selected HDR. HDR was selected again based on their experience with various underpass projects and their experience with Amtrak, Metra, and also Canadian Pacific, which owns the line. They have recently done work at Wesley Street and Manchester Road Bridge Underpass in Wheaton. They're currently doing the Wheaton College pedestrian underpass, and they're also right now under contract for Metra to evaluate the high-speed rail program. So HDR is a well-qualified firm. Overall employees are over 7,000 employees worldwide. In terms of what will entail Phase 1, typically when we apply for grants on any city infrastructure project, we do all the what we call is a feasibility analysis. We look at what the price range is going to be, where is the approximate location of this underpass, and we do some preliminary engineering. In this case, all that process was not done because, again, through the efforts of the mayor and the Transportation Safety Enhancement Committee, we were able to get the grant before we do any of those aspects. So that's why this Phase 1 is a little bit more expensive than a typical Phase 1, because we are doing all those feasibility analysis and all the Phase 1 environmental analysis. All that will be done as part of this Phase 1 study, and then we're going to come up with the proper location and also what type of underpass. Is it going to be a jack and board where you're going to jack the underpass, just dug a hole, basically bore a hole underneath the tracks, or again in talking with the Metra and Amtrak, see if you can do a cut and open where one track can be put out of service and then you try to build a underpass by opening. So all those options are going to be, again, something we have to evaluate as part of the discussion. So it is a tight schedule. Previously, we were planning to use the IDOT grant funds, but we decided that to expedite this process, we are going to use total local funds for Phase 1, so it will be all paid out of TIF funds, and then for Phase 2 and Phase 3 construction, we will then use the grant funds. We did receive $1 million from the state high-speed rail, and then we received $1 million from the feds high-speed rail. So we do have $2 million. Again, this Phase 1 will look at the structural, feasibility, environmental, drainage, all aspects of this, and we have to follow the IDOT procedure on getting this grant. With that, I did put down a tentative timeline. This is aggressive. Without IDOT's approval, we don't want to proceed to the next phase. But since all the local funds are going to be used for the Phase 1, we are hopeful that we can speed up that process with the state and try to get the Phase 1 done, so that we can go to the final design in Phase 2 next year. With that, I'll entertain any questions. Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned Phase 1 is about 10% of the total cost. Phase 2, what do you project Phase 2 in terms of percentage of total?
It's usually 6 to 7, Alderman, 6 to 7% of the
so it'll be less than the Phase 1?
It's typically less. Provided, again, the big caveat with this underpass project, which all the underpass projects has, is the drainage. If we can, via gravity, if all the water, snow melt, and every rainfall event can be addressed for a 100-year flood, that means we call it a base flood. If that can be addressed via gravity, the cost is going to be reasonable. But if we have to put a pump system, because we can't get the stormwater away from the underpass, then the cost varies. So that's why they're going to do a detailed analysis for the drainage. But typically 6 to 7% for Phase 2.
Well, and that kind of segues into the next question I had, and that was looking at your diagram. It looked like starting on the west side of the tunnel, the ramp is going to go down, reverse and down, and then the tunnel under the tracks, and then the elevation continues to drop to McDonald's?
Right.
So the tunnel's going to be at an elevation above that of the grade at the McDonald's?
Right. The diagram you're referring to is part of that Metra agreement. That was put in by Parsons, another consultant, as what we call as a conceptual sketch. So the conceptual sketch you are describing is the underpass going here, and then the, and then you got the ramp. You got to build a ramp,
Right.
comes here, and then because the ideal location will be right here because there's a big grade change here, the grade drop. So, but right now they're looking at all the feasibilities to see if this could be an ideal location. We are not locked into this location, but even though on paper it looks good because you got all this parking lot here, and then the gate does drop, and then you got to build in the ramps to get back to Settler Square area.
Yeah, but we had some conversation trying to move the center of the mass further north so that maybe the gates could stay up when the train comes to the station. So
Right.
we want to,
That would happen regardless, though.
even if the underpass is south? Okay.
Right. Yeah. As part of that, we will consider all aspects of that too. If not only the station moving north, but also the third track. They're looking at a third track. So any underpass we are going to build, we will accommodate for that future third track if that happens.
Yeah. And then who is HDR? Were they involved in Deerfield or at Ravinia?
No, Deerfield was done by McDonough. They were one of the three finalists. Again, HDR, they have done work mostly in Cook County, in Wheaton and all. They have similar experience. And after we finalized on them, we called in the references, and Metra and Amtrak have worked extensively with HDR. So they are considered, premier railroad experts.
We've never had business dealings with them.
We never dealt with them. That's right.
I have. They're a great firm.
Yeah, they're a
Especially in
national
this
firm.
area. They're
good.
a global firm,
Yeah.
actually.
Um,
So, I had a couple questions, Ramesh. One is, I know these are very sketchy, early ideas, but this is going to be very visible and a very important part of the Settler Square redevelopment. We're throwing a lot of money at this. Can we ensure that there's some aesthetics and environmentally sensitive design here, and they're not just designing these big ugly concrete ramps?
No, you're correct, Alderman.
Put a focus on that as part of the project to see if they can challenge them to come up with something that doesn't look like an engineer did it. That would be excellent.
No, they have teamed up with an architect too, so it's not
Good.
just an engineering firm. It's a engineering that they did team up with an architect firm to provide aesthetically. They know that it's Lake Forest. That's why one of the reasons why this project is a little different than all other projects is we don't have a good number, that final number of the aesthetics. Right now we are throwing in, it costs anywhere from 1.8 to 2.6, but once we add all those aesthetic elements, we'll get a good number. And then, we can go through. Right now, we do have $2 million, and from what I was told, IDOT still didn't confirm, those are all 100%. We don't need to do any match, but so any additional money city can provide will enhance the aesthetic.
Yeah, that was another question, was we're gonna get reimbursed for the design?
For the phase, not
Okay.
for the phase one, but phase two
Phase
and
one?
phase one is all local funds. We are
We're
going to
not getting reimbursed for that?
Right, because by the time we do have funds, we did budget the funds for TIF for this project, and we are trying to expedite the process because we are trying to negate the IDOT approval process. So, and then, but for phase two and phase three, we will get reimbursed. Yeah, we can, but it's just the process gets slowed down, and we're trying to expedite because we do have the funds available.
No, I know the process takes a little longer, so we're
Right.
spending the money locally so we can expedite it?
Not only from that perspective, but also trying to get the project, we got so many players involved, and then we are trying to see if we can, with the Amtrak stop being on the horizon, and then the interest from Metra and Amtrak, to get this project undergoing, I think, it was in the best interest of everybody to get this project done.
Right. There's a lot of additional traffic. I mean, there isn't as much pedestrian traffic. There's also a lot of bike traffic. Did we ever think about that as we're thinking about locations and things too?
like, actually, you're correct. As part of this, we are also looking, is it going to be a pedestrian underpass or a pedestrian/bike? And then providing bike racks on either side,
Great.
not so much on the east side, but on the west side, yes. you're
Okay.
correct.
Thanks. You think of everything, Ramesh. We're lucky.
No.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with HDR.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Novit,
Aye.
Alderman Waldeck,
Aye.
Alderman Pandaleon,
Aye.
Alderman Morsch,
Aye.
Alderman Palmer,
Aye.
Alderman Adelman,
Aye.
6 yeas, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you, Karina. Any other additional items for council discussion this evening? Yes, Bob?
Yeah, the last item on your published agenda is discussion regarding Lake County Forest Preserve District and a resolution that they have coming before them on March 13th at their board meeting. Late Friday afternoon, and I think there was a flurry of emails that went out to all of you. We were notified by the Forest Preserve that on March 13th, they will be looking at a resolution which would in effect ask the U.S. Army to remove the deed restriction on the property that currently requires them to construct a golf course. There was lengthy documents in terms of the justification for that and so forth. But the reason I sent it out and I wanted to put it on the agenda this evening is that this is the last council meeting before their March 13th meeting, and I wanted to make sure, particularly since we have some newer aldermen who were not here in 2009 when the city council passed its original resolution, as to whether or not we wanted to do anything different or at least send a message to our Forest Preserve Board representative as to the feelings of the City Council with respect to that vote and moving forward. So it really was just an opportunity before the Forest Preserve does weigh in on the 13th for you to make any comments that we can convey in a letter from the mayor to Susan Gravenhorse and others, if you so desire.
Didn't we, I seem to remember hearing from Susan Gravenhorst over this summer at some point, and didn't we affirm or this resolution or already affirm our support as a group?
Yes.
Yep, you have. You did that in, apologize, June of 2011.
Right. The only problem is she forgot to vote that way. Yeah, and I'm sorry that she's not here tonight so that I can remind her once again that she forgot to vote the way that the city of Lake Forest would hope that she did.
Yeah.
But maybe she'll take it to heart. Being her, she's retiring, and maybe this time she'll take it to heart. But it looks like, from the information, it's going to pass pretty handily. So I think that's great news for us.
Yeah,
right?
I would think so.
So, do we need to do anything?
I don't think
need
we
to
That was
do
my
anything.
question. Should we
formally don't.
affirm again?
We will
We keep affirming.
we will have a communication with Ms. Gravenhorse and let her know the council
Tell
sentiments.
her we're still watching.
Yeah.
So we're reaffirming that we do want to have the deed restriction
Removed.
removed.
Correct.
And again, that'll be beneficial to our golf course, which I remind you opens for season play the end of this month.
I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing you put him on the committee.
He's very excited
He
about it.
is,
I
so
don't
I
know.
like his
Well,
dedication.
enthusiasm.
I do too. It's
I will
incredible.
also
It's
point out for the
fantastic.
record, if you look at that resolution in 2009, we pretty much laid out a process by which the Forest Preserve could go forward with the development of a master plan that was an alternative to a golf course that certainly would meet the needs of all the residents of Lake County. And I was assured, and actually it's included in their resolution, that if the Army does remove the deed restriction, then they will immediately move into the development of a master plan, which will involve representatives from the surrounding communities and so forth. So I think it's certainly in our residents' best interest if we were able to move forward with that, so it just doesn't continue to sit fallow for a period of time, although it's not bad the way it is right now with the trails that they've done so far.
So we simply affirm our earlier stance and direction.
Yep, and we will
Okay.
pass that along.
Very
Thank you.
good. Any other items for council discussion this evening?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Kent, hurry up. Get to your paddle game today.